All right, here we go with Mr. Orth's flipped classroom for grammar, but a new topic, active and passive voice. For a number of you, even if you've been in my class for a few years, this is actually going to be a new topic. First, active voice. This is the kind of sentences we're most commonly used to. This is where the subject directly performs the action of the verb. So when you've been taught to circle the verb and ask the question who or what the verb, simple subject most commonly appears in front of that, or you can rewrite the sentence without taking out any words, so the verb comes after the subject, and we're good to go. Passive voice, a little more confusing. The subject technically receives the action of the verb. This is where it gets confusing because there's really two parts of speech that we're looking at a sentence. We understand it to be a certain way if you're sitting in a different subject area other than grammar, and you are reading an article and being asked to answer questions on it, you would understand what you're doing and be able to answer the questions. But if you were asked to label things grammatically speaking, it looks kind of backwards. So how do we know passive voice? Well, specifically, they usually have an unnecessary helping verb, meaning if you write the sentence, you actually would get rid of the helping verb. And the subject we understand appears as the object of a preposition. The subject actually comes after by, which makes it no longer the subject. Why does it matter? Well, passive voice is weaker and potentially more confusing to the reader. If we use active voice, we're good to go. When can you use passive voice? Only time I allow my students to use passive voice is if you're trying to explain a statement and there's no subject that you know of, but you need to state it altogether anyway. I'll give you an example before we're done. Our practice one. The dog was walked by the little girl. So we go back to our roots. What's the verb? Well, the verb phrase is was walked. So who or what was walked? Well, the dog was walked. Great. But if we just take out the helping verb and say who walked, well, technically the little girl walked. But it comes after the preposition by. So technically, that's the object preposition and dog is simple subject. But is there a way to rewrite this sentence so it's clear and cleaner? Well, the little girl walked the dog. That's actually what's happening. You see that we've taken out extra words, was and by. And it's clear. Subject, verb, object, we're good to go. So when could you actually use passive voice? Well, let's say, for example, you didn't know who walked the dog, but you knew the dog got walked by someone. Well, you can say the dog was walked by someone, or someone walked the dog. But someone, somebody, anybody, everybody, most of us have an intuition that's not very clear or very specific writing. So we try to avoid those terms, especially as we become more advanced writers. So if we need to state that the dog was walked, but we don't know who did it, then we might just say the dog was walked. It's not great. It's not necessarily effective. But if we have no other options, that's the only time or case where I allow students to actually use passive voice. Otherwise, in every other option, rewrite it. Get rid of extra words such as the extra helping verb and the preposition by, and get to the point. You might want to do several practice exercises as a class before you try some practice on your own, or it might be one of those rare times you actually want the teacher to go through every correct answer with you as a class. This is new. Give it a go, and good hunting.